I feel the need for speed. Let's go. Let's talk about a new commit for the Badgers, a burner coming from Florida.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. Appreciate you being an everydayer. Appreciate you tuning in and making this one of your first listens. Today's episode, we were talking about a new commit for the Badgers 2026 class, Zion Legree. I think it's Legree commits to the Badgers. 5'11", 195-pound receiver coming out of Destin, Florida. Let's put up some of the stats here, some of the numbers. Offers from really impressive offer list. You have offers from Auburn, decommitted from Ole Miss, so this is an SEC win. Florida was in on this. I think Nebraska, Notre Dame, among many others. What are we getting with him? Let's put on the film. Let's sound the cannons. Let's talk about the newest part of the 2026 class for the Badgers.
Fire the recruiting cannons. Another one is headed to Madison on Wisconsin.
Okay.
Fire the recruiting cannons.
It's looping. Let's stop this. All right, so Legree, let's talk about it. So 5'11", 190 pounds. I like him in the slot. Justin and I actually talked about him quite a bit here. Slot, but I think he can play some boundary too. I think he's big enough, and you see him here on film playing boundary. The first thing is his speed. Speed kills. You're talking about a guy who has reported.
To Madison.
Oh my gosh, why is he playing again? Stop. The Cannons are excited today. So you're talking about a guy who has a 4.35 is a reported 40 time for Legree. That's burning. And again, you're watching him here in Florida. He's running away from Florida people. He's running away from Florida DBs. The speed is real. It's there. 5'11", and you can see him used in a variety of ways, right? In the slot, on the boundary, end arounds, direct snaps. I think it's a bit of an offensive weapon. I think you're getting someone, and again, speed is not something you can replicate. It's something the Badgers are continually searching for on the edges. It's something they're always looking for. To get somebody with this offer list, I really like this pickup because you're getting somebody with a legitimate speed, a legitimate carrying tool with that speed, and somebody who, again, can play, I think, a variety of roles. I think there's some special teams potential here. I think you can put him in the slot. I think you can put him at the boundary. You can run some stuff with Coach Grimes with him. Jeff Grimes, the offensive coordinator for the Badgers. I think he's going to like having a weapon like this. I'm curious what we see from this year's film. Like, I'm curious if we see him more in the slot or more in the boundary, if we see him with maybe more of a route tree. I haven't been able to watch a ton of film on him yet. So I am curious, like, how shifty he is. If you put him in the slot, is he going to be able to shift and break tight man coverage? Is he going to be able to get up, bump and run coverage, that kind of stuff? You don't really see that on the film. It doesn't mean he can't do it. It's something I would like to see. I love the fact that he gets north and south really quickly. As a 49ers fan, Kyle Shanahan, something he always says about his guys is the first thing we want them to do after they catch the ball, get north and south. Put the foot down, get north and south. He does a really good job of that. And with his speed, he really quickly creates yak opportunities. You're just not going to find a lot of guys that are 5'11" at this level of high school football that are going to come in and run a 4.35, a 4.4, and you're going to be able to get them to Madison. So nice offer list. Staff did a really nice job here getting them up. Obviously, this is a big need for this class. We got some comments over here that are piling in. Luke P says, yes, sir, let's sound the cannons. We're going to play this film again because his film, the one that I had, isn't very long. We're going to play it again so everyone can see it. And again, when you're watching it, you see it's just easy speed, right? He's running by people. He's outrunning angles. People aren't catching him, playing down in Florida. The speed is a carrying tool. And that's something we always talk about recruits when we watch film. Can you see a carrying tool? Can you see a carrying skill set? In baseball, they talk about a fastball. Does he have a carrying fastball? Well, speed is a fastball, and he's got that. He's got that in spades. So you can never have that too much of that in Wisconsin. You can never have too much of that at receiver. You can never have too much of that in the Big Ten. Now, what needs to come next? Because that's the next thing we're going to talk about. Let's get our other comments in here. Robert Sorensen, good friend of the show, says, let's go. Brian Shetty, so much for not being able to recruit in Florida. Hey, you got a shot at Brian Smith there. I love it. Raul Carrera, good friend of the show, says, Wisconsin, let's go. Another one headed to Madison. Will Hannah says, Washington didn't pull the trigger and this happened. So let's talk about that. So Zachary Washington was a receiver they've been in on for a long time, over a year. He's been on campus a bunch of times, had an official visit last weekend. Didn't pull the trigger. Is this it for Washington? I'll be honest. So as soon as this happened, as soon as Legree happened, smoke got out there that maybe it means Washington's not heading to Madison. And you saw crystal balls flip to Michigan State. It does kind of look like this might mean that Zachary Washington is not heading to Madison. And I got to be honest, I don't fully know. I'm just going to be honest with this. Jaden Pettit's still out there as well. Jaden Pettit is a guy the staff is heavily after. He's a big time receiving target. I think you could take 4 receivers this class. I really do. I think you could absolutely take 4 receivers this class, because if you look at our depth chart, who are your boundary receivers going into next year? This is a room that I think needs to be refilled a little bit. You've taken 2 receivers in the last 2 recruiting cycles, which I don't think is enough. Again, I think the staff has done a tremendous job in recruiting the last 2 cycles. I don't think they've got enough receivers. Your last 2 cycles, it's been Eugene Hilton Jr., it's been Kyan Berry Johnson. I think you could take 4 this cycle. I really do. So, again, I'm not the one that has to deal with roster management. I would love to take Bardo, Legree, and Washington. I think you could fit all of them into this class. I do. But that's just my take on that. Again, I mean, more is going to happen, and there's still after Jaden Pettit. So if they land Jaden Pettit and you pair him with Legree, and Tayshawn Bardo, that's a tremendous receiver class. But you got to land Jaden Pettit for that to happen, and that's a tough battle. That's a major recruiting battle the Badgers are still in. Mitch James says increasing overall team speed is the goal. Yeah, dude. Mitch, you're dead on. Like, me being worried about the overall kind of numbers in the receiver room has nothing to do with Zion Legree committing. I think he is a tremendous get. You got a 5'11" guy that can run like that has proven he can produce in Florida, that has offers from SEC schools, Notre Dame, Nebraska's trying. This is a tremendous get. I just kind of selfishly hope it doesn't close the door on Washington, although I think it kind of does. Let's see who else is in here. Mitch James, he committed from Ole Miss. Greg Lincecum asked, do you think we get Washington and Pettit as well? So Washington is who we just kind of talked about. If you're just reading the tea leaves, because if you go and look at what's publicly available, it looks like the crystal balls on Zachary Washington flipped to Michigan State, basically right after Zion Legree committed to Wisconsin. Kind of seems like that ship is sailing. Now, Pettit is a battle. Pettit is in on a couple schools. I know UNT. I think he's visiting North Carolina now. Wisconsin did a really good job with Jaden Pettit, and Jaden Pettit, to me, is the crown jewel of all this. You can get Jaden Pettit and almost pair him with anybody, and it's a tremendous receiver class. So he's still out there. I think it's a major battle. I would call it anybody's game at this point, to be completely honest with you, but it does kind of look like the ship on Washington has sailed. All right, let's take a break there. I want to get into the rest of your comments, what I think this receiver room looks like a little bit going forward, some more thoughts on Legree. That's all coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, we're going to take a quick second for our friends of the show on this kind of pop-up episode of Locked On Badgers, celebrating a commitment here. Today's episode brought to you by our incredible friends over at Gametime. Listen, we do Locked On meetups, and if anyone's able to, I highly encourage people to come make it to our Locked On meetups. It's a ton of fun. I know some people in the chat. Zach Barts is in the chat. He's been on to some of these Locked On meetups. And we're going to always try to use Gametime to get those tickets, because it's more fun when you get people together, when you bring the community together, when you break bread and have some adult beverages together. And then you can go to the Kohl Center, Camp Randall, get together, cheer for the homies, watch them lose a heartbreaker to Oregon. I know some of y'all were there with me for that one. But it's unbelievable to get together with the people, to celebrate, to enjoy the camaraderie, to see the team. Gametime helps facilitate that. Let's do more things together in life. Right now, Gametime is the best ticket marketplace for whatever you want to get to. Flash deals, great inventory, pictures of the seats before you sit down. And right now, you can take the guesswork out of the buying tickets with Gametime. Download Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, let's lead off the next segment with just all your comments. Fam, chat, community, what do you think? What do you think of Legree? What do you think of Washington potentially kind of losing his spot in this class? Is that on the player for not locking it in when he's had ample opportunity? Are you a little frustrated with the staff for maybe saying, nope, we're done? What do you think? What do you think of this class? What do you think of Legree? Comments, thoughts, questions, throw them in here. Let's get to them. Zach Barts, Looks like he took Washington's spot, hoping they can pull off one more commit. Pettit would be nice, but I'm not holding out too much hope there. Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it. I do think he took Washington's spot. I think you're kind of probably dead on there. Now, I would also preface this with we're in June. Anything can change. Anything in recruiting can change. Maybe Washington ends up in this class and Legree doesn't. Let's just be honest. Anything can change in recruiting. So I would write everything in with pencil. It's very possible that you see another body added here. I hope so. You mentioned Pettit. Listen, they could also find somebody to flip in the season. I think you have to get 3 receivers minimum in this class because look at the depth chart, and that's what I want to get into next. Let's look at who is on this roster after next year because you're losing Ballard. You're going to lose Henry. You're going to lose Vinny Anthony. You're going to lose who else am I missing? There's a couple other ones you're going to lose here. You basically are going into next year. You have Eugene Hilton Jr. You have Tretch, who's more of a slot guy. Joseph Griffin, who was the Boston College guy. You would have him for another year, but he wasn't able to get on the field last year. You have Chris Brooks, who I think is a really great situational guy. My point is, though, there's not a lot in this cupboard after this year. So to me, this feels like a 3. I would take 4 this year. I would take 4 receivers. And I know Robin Sorensen, who I love, by the way, says 4 receiver class. Yeah, probably not. Let's get Pettit now. First of all, if you get Pettit, it's a home run. But gosh, man, you look at the bodies in that room. There's not a ton there. And not everybody you bring in is going to hit. Like, what's the hit rate on a recruit at receiver? 50%, 70%. I don't know what it is. It's not 100%. So I kind of feel like you take 4, and if you get 4 in, maybe 2 or 3 hit, and you kind of need 2 or 3 to hit when you start looking at the numbers. Now, portal is a spot you can go to the well at receiver and running back and fill bodies in there. But how have the portal receivers done at Wisconsin? Let's CJ Williams and Bryson Green and Will Pauling. Now, Will Pauling was a hit. Despite some of the drops last year, he was a hit, but a lot of the other guys have been a little hit or miss. I mean, Joseph Griffin was a portal guy last year. Tyrell Henry was a portal guy last year. Deco Crowdis is coming in this year. We'll see how that fits. But yeah, man, I just think this is a spot where you get 4 bodies this year. And I kind of still hope they do. Yeah, Will, dead on, dude. I 100% agree with you. Will Hanna says I would still take Washington. I don't think they will. I agree. Like I guess, and I want to preface this with I am not in the room and I am not having the conversations, obviously, with the kids or the family. So I don't know what those conversations look like at all, right? And so it's not fair for me to criticize in black or white, anything like that. I don't know why taking Zion Legree should shut the door on Washington. You've been on him for over a year. He's a Plan A guy. He's 6'1". He's a 4'4" kid. I think you can take both. Now, again, I'm not in those rooms. I'm not having those conversations. And so I'm not privy to like all the information they have, but I just feel like you could have taken both, or should still try to take both is a better way to phrase it. Badger Maniac says, I made a live show this week. Let's go, dude. Dude, I love it. Zach Barts, I love this take. Legree on speed sweeps with his speed will be special. Yeah, you bring a kid like this into the Grimes offense where they're trying to get receivers in space. They're trying to run jet sweeps. And you see that on his film. I think this is a great point from Zach, right? You see it on his high school film. His high school team uses him like this. They use him in jet sweeps. They use him in the slot. They use him in the boundary. They throw a smoke screen to him. Then they do a direct snap to him. This kid just feels like a weapon. And that's what you do with guys with speed. And that's also what Coach Grimes is really good at. Using weapons, using misdirection, getting receivers going one way. This is a really nice addition to this class. This is one of my favorite additions to this class because you just don't get a lot of guys like him up to Wisconsin. Is he a 4.35 guy? I'm going to be honest, probably not. That's what's reported. There's so few 4.35 guys. We got to be real with ourselves. There's so few 4.35 guys on this planet. Go look at the NFL draft combine. How many of those receivers going into the league run a 4.35? But I think he's a 4.4 guy and 4.4 special. Like 4.4 is blazing. So to get him from Florida, I love the addition. I think it's not even a frustration. My only question is a much better term. I'm not going to get frustrated in June. There's a ton of time for this class. My only question is, I think we need more at receiver. And whether that's Pettit or whether that's a couple more bodies, this can't be it. is my only question, which is where I get back to the idea of I hope this wouldn't permanently close the door on a guy like Washington, just from a talent standpoint. Yeah, Badger Manning says, I just keep getting speed with all these picks, athleticism being key. This staff has done a really good job of bringing in athletes. We talked about it with the last commitment with Zachary Taylor in the secondary. It's speed in a lot of places, and it's something they prioritize. It's something they've done a really good job of landing, and I appreciate with that. All right. Will Hannah talking about Stroud at running back. I love that. Greg says, I might need to add a smoke machine to my cannon with all the speed. Zach Barts, Washington had a chance to commit, but didn't pull the trigger. Legree came in and took that spot. Pettit is still a possibility. Yeah, and listen, I'm not it's a good point from Zach, too. Like, Washington was on campus 4 or 5 times. You know, he definitely could have committed and locked in his spot. I think there's an element of, here's what it's, I just throw this out there for food for thought, and I'll let the community do whatever they want with it. I agree with this from Zach. But I think at times fans get frustrated with players for not making quick decisions, but also get frustrated with players for then flipping because maybe they made too quick a decisions, right? And it's kind of I don't want to say damned if you do, damned if you don't type of thing, but it is kind of like we want players to lock in quickly, but then we also want them to never waver, right? To never question their decisions. And it's like, well, what's the downside of waiting a little bit more if you're a player, I guess? I guess you lose your spot, but I think at times as fans, we want the best of both worlds. We want players to lock in quickly and then never question their decisions. And I don't know how fair that is. And again, I could be way off base on this because Zach is correct. Washington could have locked this in if you wanted to. I know the staff wanted to Zoom. He had the green light. I would have been thrilled for that to happen for the record. But I also love Legree. I love adding a guy that can burn like this from Florida. Luke P, does Pettit have a decision date? Yeah, I've heard in July. And I think Will actually wrote that as well. Yep, Will said July. I've heard in July. He feels like a guy that it could keep dragging out, though, because there's a lot of schools sniffing around him. And he feels like a guy that potentially even could drag into the season. That wouldn't surprise me with Pettit at all. Mitch says, I keep envisioning Gilreath's kickoff return versus OSU. Yep. Or Kenzel Doe, like kickoff return against Utah State. Or who was that little Aaron Crookshank? You guys remember Crookshank and his kickoff return against, what was it, Oregon? Yeah, dude, it's been a while since we've had that burner at kickoff returns. It would be nice to potentially Legree as a guy that could fit into that, right? And oftentimes you want that north-south speed guy for returns. You don't necessarily need a really super shifty in space guy. You need the guy who's going to put the foot in dirt, find a seam, and then explode. Legree has that type of speed, and he has that type of build. He is kind of like that Gilreath type build, actually. It's not terrible. Let's see. Robert Sorensen says you can still get a transfer portal guy. I agree. Listen, you can get receivers in the portal. It's just we haven't done great there, right? It feels like now. I think you can make the argument of where have we done great in the portal. The portal hasn't been the best for us, so maybe that's an all around thing and less of a receivers thing. Dude, I love this one, Robert Sorensen, and I apologize for not starting with this. Happy Father's Day, Ryan. First of all, thank you, but happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Let's pause there for a second. And I should have led with this. Happy Father's Day. If you're a dad that listens to this show, just know that you rock. You're incredible. Like, I assume most of you are good dads that listen to the show, and you're incredible. What you do is incredible. Thank you for being dads. Like, dads are super important. And sometimes I think dads get a little forgotten about. And this is not a show to delve into anything deeper than that. But thank you for being a great dad. If you're listening to this show, thank you for being there for your kids and for the sacrifices you make. And, for the sons that are out there, like take a second and send a text to your dad. Just tell him thank you. I think that's a great one. I love my kids like beyond words. So yeah, happy Father's Day. Will Hannah, speed kills, and a quality player with his speed, Williams would be a take for me. Dude, I agree. Dude, Will Hannah, you and I like Legos, man. We were sticking together on this one. DJ Hungerford, Legree gets free. Matt LePay. Yeah, I love that. Listen, this is a big-time pickup. But make no mistake, this is a Plan A guy. You get him in June. He was an Ole Miss commit. He's got a bunch of other really high-profile offers. The film checks. The measurables are there. This is a really good get for this offense. You just got to keep. I think I'm only a little bummed because I feel like this potentially shuts the door on Washington, and I don't think it should. You know what I mean? It just on the surface, which is all I have, but on the surface, it feels like you should be able to have room for both of them, given the numbers in the room and given how good I think both of them are. Jim Thompson says, thanks for staying on top of this cycle, Ryan. Man, Jim, thanks for tuning into the live shows, brother. I appreciate you. Yeah, Robert says, I do like Washington. Wouldn't be mad with a 4 receiver class. And you're never going to get everybody. But I do feel like this cycle in particular, you need a couple corners. You need to hit on receiver and running back. Amari Latimer's still out there. I still feel good there. That would be a home run. But I think you need 3 or 4 receivers in this cycle. So at the end of the day, if you end up with 3 and it's Bardo, Legree, Pettit, that's a home run. Because, I mean, Pettit, Legree, Bardo, that's a great class. I'm worried that we may not get Pettit and then maybe we've killed our chance at Washington. We'll see. Maybe my worry is premature. All right, we're going to wrap it there. Again, this was just kind of an impromptu show. We got a really fun show coming up tomorrow with Coach Gothier. We're talking about the jumps Nolan Winter, John Blackwell can make, Janicki. We're going into Braden Carrington. On Tuesday, you guys are going to get a Latravian Fenderson show. We should have him and his pops on the show and talk about this game and the recruitment to Wisconsin. That should be really fun. Plus, we got some more really good guests and shows coming up this week. So as always, really do appreciate you guys on Wisconsin. From the cabin, I'm going to sign off tonight because I got to get some sleep. But on Wisconsin, we will definitely talk later.